Let's see. And the PDF or Acrobat won't let me be great, so it won't let me put it in full screen so that you don't see this at the top, but we're gonna make it work. All right, so today, if you're so smart, why haven't you finished that qualitative paper? Oh no, why won't you be great? Okay, so I'm gonna ask that you silence your phones. I think you are all on mute, so that shouldn't be a problem even if it goes off. But just for the sake of focus and concentration, I'm gonna ask that you just take this time for yourself and try to eliminate as many distractions as possible. Just in case you don't miss anything, or if you have a question and it gets answered, so you don't miss that. You are in the right place if you are working on a qualitative research project. I think that's kind of duh, but I just want to make sure for anyone who is not as familiar with my work or my website or my blog or anything, that I do mainly focus on qualitative research. Sure, things that I'm going to talk about tonight can be used for like a quant or a mixed methods, but I solely focus on qualitative research. If you are feeling overwhelmed, stuck, or just not sure where you should begin in your paper, maybe you haven't started, maybe you're in the middle of it, maybe you're trying to finish it, and you're like, I don't know what to do next. It happens to the best of us, paralysis. And so you're in the right place for that. You're in the right place if you have a tight timeline to finish your paper. I know for most of us, the semester has ended, but that doesn't mean you don't have different publications or conferences or other things that you need to submit a paper, a manuscript for. If you also are starting like the first 3 chapters of your dissertation, this would be very helpful for you too. I know that process can be overwhelming because, yeah, where do you start? Most people start at chapter 2, and oh, that's a lot. It took me, I started with chapter 2 and I ended with chapter 2 because I just got overwhelmed. And if you're looking for some motivation to write, it is the end of a very hard semester. Fall, I find, is always hard because you have a lot of breaks in there. It seems shorter and it seems like a lot is compact into one semester. So you might not have the motivation right now to write. And if you are looking for some feedback, I know our faculty people are also tired and may not be as quick with the feedback. And so you may have these deadlines and they may not be able to get back to you. And so we'll talk about that some tonight. At any point, if I say something that resonates with you, please go ahead and type yes or anything that you feel comfortable with in the chat box. That helps me to know. What sticks with you and what doesn't, or if something is confusing or you need me to go back, just let me know in the chat and we will answer that for you. So I see y'all are making connections in the chat box. So today what I'm going to talk about is the reasons you're feeling stuck, steps to take to write and outline your paper, and how to finish your paper in terms of how to get a personalized accountability. So me, I'm Marvette. I don't know if I said that in the beginning, but for those of you who don't know, you just signed up. I'm Marvette. I am currently in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. We had like a warm, like I guess front or a heat wave for the winter. It was 50 degrees for the past 4 days, and the temperature has dropped to a slick 15 degrees today. I know, right? It's a drastic switch. We are expecting snow tomorrow and ice storm on Friday. And such is life. So that's where I am. I graduated from the University of Georgia in last May, in the PhD program of College Student Affairs Administration, along with Joan here. A little bit about my dissertation process is where I'll pick up from. So let's see, I passed my prelims. Oh, I think I passed my orals in like early December, late November 2015. And from that point all the way to June 2016, I could not write. Our prelim process is a little bit different in that we do not work on our first 3 chapters. We have 4 different questions that we are expected to answer within a 4-hour period, briefly. And so you don't essentially work on your prospectus until you have successfully passed your oral exams for your prelims. And so I didn't write, I couldn't write. Like I was like paralyzed from anxiety and depression from December all the way until June of the following year when I went on a writing retreat with some friends. Um, I had to go get my mental health in order, get on some medication. And so that kind of helped and to see someone. And so that meant that I like shortened my timeline a whole lot. So I didn't start writing until June 2016. My prospectus had to be in by the first week of August when the semester started. So they gave me essentially 2 months to write my prospectus. And then you go through that whole process of going back and forth with your committee, with your chair. So I wasn't really writing between August and when I did data collection. I did my defense to submit my proposal to my committee. And then I went through the whole IRB process. And so that brought us to the first week of January. I collected data for the first time on January 9th or 10th of 2017. And I had to have a whole complete draft of my dissertation by March 6, 2017. So if you're doing the math, that means I collected data, I coded, and I wrote chapters 4 and 5 and made the edits of chapter 1, 2, and 3 in essentially 2 months. Now, I do not recommend this to anyone because that's a whole lot. That was also just the reality of my situation. So I do want to share today, like the lessons I learned and things that helped me to make sense of the research process, but more so the writing process, because a lot of people focus on the research and that is important. But the truth, it's hard to sit there and write 5 chapters worth of stuff. There's a lot that people just don't tell you. And so that's what we're talking about today. Yes, wow. So some things that may be holding you back is you're not sure where you should begin. Like I was mentioning earlier, I mean, I got into chapter 2 and I literally just brain dumped, but I didn't know where to start with that. I just was like, it's the only thing I know how to write and that's what I'm doing. But I wasn't sure about like, I know I need to talk about a research problem, but like, how do you write a research problem? And how do you talk about your research questions? And how do you talk about the literature beyond just summarizing all the things that you read? Because I would get feedback of like, you need to add more to this. And I would always be left with the question of how. I also think I'm always confused too. But my advisor didn't necessarily have the time to like sit there with me and go through this is exactly how you write something. You can't decide on a topic. So this is for people who are like at the beginning stages of dissertating and you have 1,000,001 topics in your head. And then the more you read, I think the more difficult that this becomes because you want to do all the things and you feel this pressure to select a topic and people say, well, make sure you love it and make sure you can spend X amount of years on it. And you got to make sure, like you're contributing something to the field. And that's all great and background noise, but that doesn't really help you to get close to choosing a topic. And you spend more time reading and trying to figure out a topic than you do actually writing. You feel like your project isn't big enough. So a lot of people will say to me, I have to talk about all the people as it pertains to my topic or my subject, and I got to make sure I'm inclusive, right? Quote unquote inclusive. And I just tell people, well, this is more than likely your first time ever creating, organizing a research project on your own, doing the data collection, doing the analysis all on your own and writing it up, and that's big enough. So the goal is for you to finish and to be doctor, and so let's just choose something, stick with that, and be done. And it doesn't have to include all the people because it's only one of you. You don't have a research team. Or you're not sure what to write, like I mentioned earlier. you feel like you haven't read enough. A lot of people will say, well, I need to read some more. I just don't have a good grasp on the literature. And I will offer that you know way more than you think you do, and you have enough knowledge in your mind to begin writing. And writing is a process, and it's constantly refining, constantly going back to articles and reading and including citations and different things. But if you never sit down to write, then you'll never make progress. So I would like for y'all to say, like, are there any things beyond what I mentioned here of reasons or things that are holding you back or things that you would need help with? Let's see. We are making connections in the comments, virtual sessions, trying to be perfect. Yep. Trying to make sure. I was talking to students the other day, and um, this one student was saying that they were writing, but in the middle of writing a sentence, they would stop because they were like, oh, the sentence structure isn't perfect, or I'm not conveying myself clear enough, or the style isn't there. And so then I just get stuck and I can't write. And I'm like, just write. It's hard. And I'm not trying to take away from all the mind chatter that's happening and difficultiness of that, but it really comes down to like just writing and going back and doing those things again. Writing is a process, and so if you leave with nothing today, please remember that writing is a process, and even the best writers still have a team around them that they give their work to for feedback, for editing, and there's many shitty drafts on the floor before you see the final product, and even probably after the final product. Afraid my work isn't good enough. Yes, imposter syndrome is not just for the beginning of the PhD process. It continues to show up throughout the process. And even at the end where you think you should be like, I did all my courses, so I should know what to write. And again, this is your first time doing this, and it's a lot. It's a big project. And especially in academia, it's easy to feel like I'm not good enough. So and so writing is better, or they speak better, and so that means that their work is going to be the bomb, and that's not necessarily the case. Um, yes, I edit as I write, so it takes me forever. Yes. Um, oh, yeah. If you can get into the habit of like, I'm just going to write now and then schedule time to go and just edit and focus on editing and going back and writing, you'll get way more done than you would if you try to do it all together. Well, thank y'all for sharing. And go. So for me, the 5 things to focus on is: 1, saying yes to a topic; 2, deciding who you are writing for; 3, writing a detailed outline; 4, the actual act of committing to writing; and 5, getting some accountability. Thank you. So one thing before I go on to, this may come up of like, I know this already, or this makes sense, or like, you're not telling me anything new. And I want to say, true, we all know these steps. We've all been told these steps 50 million times. And you have to ask yourself the question, and I mean this in the most lovingly way as possible. Yes, you know this already, but why are you not doing it? And that's the question that I ask myself continuously. I go back and read my own stuff because I still get stuck with writing, and I have to realize that it's me and all my like mental stuff. And yes, I know what to do. I just have to make the decision to do it. So first, saying yes to a topic. So you can see it's just pick a topic. So clarity and understanding comes from doing. So the more you go through the process of writing, of picking a topic, writing about that topic, the more you'll start to understand what it is that you want to write about. So your dissertation topic is going to change. That could be small, that can be large, even if you're sure about your topic, even if you know exactly what it is that you want to write about. When you get to data collection, when you get to analysis, when you get to writing it up, when you talk to your committee, it's going to change. It could be like the population, it could be narrowing that down, it could be a different research site. It will change in some way. And so it's okay that if you start with a topic and you start to write, that that may change. The whole goal here is for you to learn the process of writing so that if you do decide to completely change your topic for something different, at least you know what to do and you know where to start, and it makes it that much quicker. But for those people who are like me, who are like, okay, I hear that, but still, what can I do to help narrow down a topic? I would just say start with a list, making a list of 10 ideas that you may have. And I feel like there's always one or two that jump out to you that you really want to do. But what comes up is that you are afraid that like people won't think it's good enough. Your committee won't go for it. It's just like that thought of like, I can't write about that. I can't research that. That's not legitimate, quote unquote, research, right? And that's something else to have a conversation with your committee. But I would say start with the one that you're most excited about. And then try to do a reflection on why would it be important to study this topic and why, what contribution will it make to the field? And it doesn't matter, try to block out like if anyone else will care, but for you, why do you think it would be important? The second thing on the list is decide who you are writing for. So I don't hear too many people talking about this. They may talk about it in the form of like, what's the significance or the so what of your study. But I find if you decide who you're writing for, it makes it easier. So the who being who's going to pick, who is your ideal person who's going to pick up your dissertation or your proposal or that article and take the most from it. So for example, for my dissertation, my was my participants. So I didn't care about administrators in colleges. I didn't care about faculty people. I cared about the Black women who were in my study and Black women who would be able to relate to that, who would pick it up and be able to see themselves reflected throughout my whole dissertation and through my findings and be able to get affirmed for that. Maybe your who is administrators or practitioners in your respective fields, and you want to create like policy change or a new policy, or you want to create a new way of doing things. And how can you write in a way that's going to help them the most is the point of this who section. So how should your study be used? Who will find it more useful? How would it contribute to your field are three main questions that I would suggest that you reflect on throughout your writing. So when you think about what methods you're going to use, is that going to get you the data that you need to help you provide the guide or whatever the final result is for the who you're writing for? Always keeping your audience in mind. Good. Okay, 3, a detailed outline. I'm going to send this to you at the end because I realized that I did not send it to everyone. But a detailed outline meaning picking all the necessary components of a paper or a proposal and taking 1 to 2 sentences, like writing 1 to 2 sentences of what are your decisions about that and how are you going to use that in your study. So for example, what is going to be your theoretical framework? And what is 1 sentence you can write about that to describe that theoretical framework? Now, this may be more difficult than actually writing the paper for some people, especially those of us who like to write a lot and use our words. Being so concise into 1 to 2 sentences can be difficult, but I say to do a detailed outline first before you write, because if you need to get approval from an advisor, a chair, or someone you're writing with, it's easier to go back and change 1 or 2 sentences than it is if you wrote the whole thing. And so I will send this to you of all the points to think about when writing a qualitative paper. And so this slide is, like I just said, you want to make a decision for each area and write 1 to 2 sentences and get feedback from someone. Just to make sure there's congruency within your research design and everything that you're doing is building off of the other. So 4, write. It's that simple. Just write. Sitting down and actually writing, because that's the most difficult thing to do. You can find everything to do around the house with other people, so and so you got to call. This show that you've been meaning to watch that you didn't, you can end up 3 hours like me on Facebook watching videos, everything but writing, because you are like, I think about myself of, because I'm in my head and I'm like, I want it to be good. I want it to be going back to perfection. And I want to make sure it says everything that I wanted to say. I even do this with my blog posts of I'll notice that I'll go onto Instagram and Facebook for hours and I have to stop myself and like, why are you really doing this? You're doing this because you're scared or whatever reason, and cutting everything off and making myself right. So the way that I do that is deciding, so making a commitment to myself and having a routine right now. I wrote my dissertation in Starbucks in Athens, and so I still go to Starbucks in Milwaukee because it's just comfortable. My wallet doesn't like it so much, but I do get a lot of rewards for all the money that I spend. But having a place in a time where you write, I know that, I don't know if Shaquinta is on the line, but she wakes up at really early in the morning to write, to get it out the way for the day. And when I'm really having a tough time sitting down and actually writing because I don't know what to write because I'm clouded by perfection, I just set a timer on my phone, like literally set a timer for 10 minutes, and I just brain dump. And whatever comes to mind is what I put down. So I could be talking about my grocery list. I can be talking about what I'm going to do for my workout routine. And then eventually I find in my mind, like my body is like, okay, well, I guess we're writing, that it then goes to the topic that I'm really supposed to be writing about. So I would suggest that you try that and see how that works for you. And then the last piece is having accountability. So the hard part, especially when you're writing your dissertation, is not having a syllabus or like class to go to where you know, like I got to do this assignment by this date and I have to turn it in to someone. There's really no one really holding you accountable. It's up to you to sit down and find that structure. And so how will you do that? And you can't say that you'll hold yourself accountable. I'm sure there's the unicorns of the world who can do that and stick to it, and that's great. But it's easy to let yourself off the hook. It's easy to just be like, no, I'll do that tomorrow, or I know I have this deadline, but I can push that off to next week because I need to go see so and so or go to this place. But if you have someone who will call you and to say like, did you do this, or someone that you email your drafts to. So at one point I had a system with my chair that I would just email her different drafts. It wasn't the expectation that she would look at it. It was more for me to know that like I have to turn this in on Friday, let's say, and I know that she'll look for it. And if she didn't receive it, she'll send me an email to say what's going on. But how will you help yourself get accountability? Okay, so I'm just checking the comments. So when you find your person, one thing I want to say is talking to your friends, your sister friends, your tribe of like your writing or about your topic or trying to help you to be accountable can burn them out. And they're probably really tired of listening to you talk and talk about it. Not because they don't love you, but because, you know, they just want you to be your best self and actually write and make progress. But they love you so much that they won't tell you that. And so what I find that's really helpful. Oh, yep, they're busy with their own writing. What I find is helpful is like when I ask, and Joan taught me this really, of like when I ask for something, if I need something proofread or I need someone to look over something, being very clear what it is that I want them to do when they're looking over it. So I may say, oh, can you look over this for APA stuff? Or can you look over this to, because I'm not a linear thinker, my writing can be all over the place. And so I may ask someone to look over it to see if it's flowing. So what is your needs, and like communicating that to whomever you're asking to help you to be accountable. On a podcast a few weeks ago when I was interviewing Mika, she said that she would have people call her to ask her if like, did I read these 2 chapters? So being as detailed as that of like, text me at 5 p.m. when you're leaving work to ask me if I read these 2 chapters. And when that person, like, you know that's going to happen, and so you know you have to get that done. I'll also say it's very important to set dates and show proof of progress. So that's where the whole like make sure I read those 2 chapters, or me sending in my drafts every Friday. And try your best to not burden the person, but to make it as easy as possible for them so that they only have to spend a few minutes helping you. Because again, they love you and they also are probably busy themselves. And so, how can you get the support that you need as well as helping them to give you that support? And another note, I would say, as Black women, we tend not to ask for help, going to the other end of the spectrum, because we feel like, oh, we're here to help everyone else, but we can't necessarily ask for help for someone else. And people who love you want to be able to help you and show up in that way, and they may not know how. And so this would really help them to know how they can help you. And maybe accountability is like, can you show up at 5 p.m. with a meal? Great, like a pizza, $5 holla from Little Caesars. That would be great. Um, Yes, and I would say like we are all here to help with feedback. I would gladly look over anything and give you some feedback if you're having a hard time finding people, because I would say for my first 2 years of my program, that was difficult. I didn't necessarily have a community. Um, and so I didn't know who to share my writing with. So I shared those 5 things. Is there anything or any one of those that really stands out to people? Let me know. I'll keep going. Just sitting down and just writing. Yes. Yep. And how do you make that commitment to yourself? Because it's easy to just get up. There's so much to do. There's so much cleaning that happens. You don't clean any other time, but that time you got time to clean. Yes. Someone shared that they have to leave their house to write. I had to leave. I tried to write here. That's a disaster. I end up going to sleep. And so my routine lately has been leaving work at 5 o'clock and going straight to Starbucks. Don't pass go. Don't collect $200. I go to Starbucks for 5, and I tell myself I have to stay there to 9 o'clock. Now it may take me, for real, some days it takes me from 5 to 7 to actually sit there and start writing. But I know I have that commitment that I'm staying there to 9, and so I'm getting some for real writing done from 7 to 9. Remember, writing is a process. Going back to the beginning, if you take nothing else from this, is that it's a process and feedback is necessary. I know it's very scary to show people your writing, especially when you're like, it's not done, or sentences are not there, or I have a bunch of thoughts that don't even make sense. Even if it's that, finding someone to give you feedback, it helps the process so much, and you go so much faster. um, and the more you get used to letting people see it in its unfinished state and getting that feedback, the better writer that you'll honestly become. Nope, not feeling like I'm pushing. Sometimes I've been like cutting back on my caffeine, but I remember during my dissertation, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna drink this cup of coffee and let the caffeine help me. That's probably unhealthy habits. But maybe there's something to help you. Maybe there's also this video I would watch of this guy. His name is Eric Thomas. I let some friends watch him as well. He speaks very passionately, is the word I'll use. In his one video, he talks about that sometimes you need to put yourself on timeout. And sometimes you have to ask yourself, what did you not do for you? Or you, I think the video is called You Owe You. So you always asking people that they didn't do what they were supposed to do, but do you ever ask yourself, what was I supposed to do and did I do that? In that video, I'll share that too in the email that I send out. It is very strong worded, and it probably isn't landing right now because I'm not doing it justice. But anytime that you are like, I just don't feel like it, watch that video and you'll feel like it. I promise. I promise you. What does it look like to put yourself on timeout? How do you tell yourself that no, we're not doing Facebook, we're not doing Instagram, we're not doing cleaning, we're writing right now because we gotta go. So watch that video and let me know what you think about it. Yeah, Shaquinta, I don't know if you remember it. We were at your house when I showed it because I was having a hard time writing that day. Okay. So like somebody mentioned before, it's all of this is simple, right? The hardest part is actually doing it and sitting down with all the like what ifs and what abouts and it's not gonna make sense and people are not going to like it or it's not gonna be strong enough. That's all the stuff that we have to deal with. And so how do we like deal with that? And so you have two options of you can say like I know this already, like you didn't really tell me anything new, Marvette, so I'm just gonna go about my business and keep doing what I'm doing until I figure it out. Or you can find you like some like a community or really sit down with your advisor or a coach like me and say like, what is my outline? What do I need to do? What is my timeline? And how do I get feedback to keep you going and to make sure that you finish when you want to finish? And so that's why I created the qualitative paper workshop that I'm doing next week on Thursday. I can't believe it's December. Like Christmas is on Monday. It was just December like a week ago. But yeah, I'll be doing this on next Thursday at 11 Central Time. I know that was a issue today. I'm always late to meetings now because everybody's usually operating in Eastern Time. I'm in Central Time, so it'll be 11 a.m., 12 p.m. Eastern, and it will be 4 hours designated for you to start and write your paper. Now, I changed this a little bit from when I initially put it out there to people. The goal originally was to go through step by step the whole paper, but I found that a lot of people who were interested in the workshop were saying like I really need help with the beginning part, and once I get to the analysis, coding, finding section, I think I'll be fine. And so I'm literally providing like a step by step, like this is what you write for your intro, your problem, your research questions, your lit review, setting up your methodology and all of that. Which is what I just said. And so the goal is to have a complete shitty first draft by the end of the day. That you can say like, I did it 4 hours. And so you'll get to break free from the mind drama of like the what ifs, the perfectionism, the procrastination, because it's 4 hours that you're showing up virtually like we are right now, where we're going to talk a little bit, we're going to also write, and that you'll actually get feedback in real time. Literally giving you a fill in the blank guide on exactly what to write. When I say like for real, like you put this is how you write a problem statement, and this is what the paragraph would look like step by step. Get there in a minute. Yeah, so if you have questions, let me know in the comments and I'll be sure to answer them. Personalized feedback on your draft from me, it'll just be me and you, so you don't have to worry about necessarily sharing your work in front of everyone. It will just be between the two of us. These are the things that we will definitely work on. So all of these things from the intro to data collection methods. And so I've worked with Shaquinta, who's on the line, and she says, Dr. Lacey truly meets you where you are and offers feedback based on your own personal needs. She is extremely detailed and very responsive. It was a joy to work with her. And so if you have any like questions that you may not necessarily feel comfortable asking me, definitely ask Shaquinta or Joan, and they will be able to, they're on the chat, who will be able to answer like what my working style is like and what that would be. So you get 4 hours to dedicate to your paper. a PDF that outlines each step. So you'll get a copy of the PDF as well as my slides that I will use during the workshop. You'll get a recording of the workshop to refer back to. So if you need to use it for something else or there's something that you remember, you can always go back. And then you get a 30-minute private session with me where I go over your paper and give you some feedback. I'm offering all of that for $45, something that I would be charging $500 for. And I will make a note. I'll be letting everyone else know that I'll be changing my prices come the new year. And so this is definitely the time. I've gotten yelled at enough. So I'll be changing them. And so if you are on the fence about that, this is a good price for this program, especially thinking about the amount of time that we're spending and everything that you get with that. When you click the link, if Jung, you would put the link in the comment section to the website and to the PayPal, you get a welcome email, a confirmation email from both PayPal and me saying that everything is all set. And then within 24 hours, I'll send you a very detailed email of this is the link, this is how you access the workshop, here's the PDF, and here's how you set up your 30-minute session with me. To make sure that's already in a book so you have something to work towards. So some questions. Again, if you have questions, let me know. What if you don't have a topic? I would say, again, going back, try to just select a topic and go with that because, again, it's more about the process and actually getting into the habit of writing. But if you feel like you really need to spend some more time with your, like finding a topic, and I would say that maybe this go around isn't for you, and we can definitely figure out something else. I'll be offering the workshop again, but remember it'll be at a different price. So going to the next question, and to give you an idea, it will be priced 3 times the price that it is now. And so again, good deal to go ahead now. What if the time or it doesn't work for you? So again, it'll be recorded and you will have access to that like forever. And so if it doesn't work for you to show up live, you can go and watch the replay and then we'll have our 30-minute session. Will I be covering data analysis and findings, or if you're at that part in your paper, then I do have a different package and we can definitely talk about that. I have a package that tells you step by step of how to do coding. If you're like, I don't know where to start with that, data is overwhelming, and talking through writing your findings in your discussion section. And but we can definitely talk more in detail about what that looks like. Right now, to give you an overview, what I offer with that is, excuse me, 3 60-minute sessions where we go over where you are in your process, what you're needing the most from me, what information is going to be helpful step by step of what you need to do, a timeline, and then when our schedule, when we're going to follow up and when I'll give you feedback. But we can definitely talk more in detail if you want to know more information. So let's go. Let me go to the comments to see.